Okay. Bonjour tout le monde. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming out. Wanted to come here because I think, as we all know, we have a housing crisis in Canada, and we need to address it. And in order to address the housing crisis, we need to build a lot of homes, just under 4 million homes over the course of the next decade. And there's a series of programs that are being put in place by the federal government, support by provinces and municipalities that are going to help that. But in order really to achieve those objectives, like many of the changes we're going to need to do in Canada, we need innovation. We need to build in a different way. And this is an example of modular housing. It builds on research that's been done here in Vancouver at University of British Columbia. And just to put this in context, we can speed up, increase speeds by 20 to 50%, reduce waste by almost 50% in the construction process, reduce emissions over the course of the production process and the lifetime of the building by 20%, and really get housing for people more rapidly, more efficiently, more cheaply, again, cost reductions of over 25%, and build true Canadian technology that not just serves Canadians here, but ultimately serves around the world. Alors, c'est fondamental afin d'atteindre nos objectifs de logement ici au Canada et à travers le monde, c'est-à-dire l'innovation canadienne qui est produite ici à Vancouver, à l'Université de Colombie-Britannique. Avec cela, I'll take your questions.
We'll begin with question period. I can go. I'm Georgie from CBC. This is for my colleagues in Ottawa. With Trump threatening to impose tariffs on steel and aluminum on March 12, your fellow leadership candidate, Christian Freeland, says it would not be ideal to go to the polls right after your party selects its new leader on March 9. What do you think?
Well, I think it's a very fluid situation. The discussions with the Americans, the demands of the Americans change, or at least of the president, change on an almost daily basis, as do the timelines. The government is currently engaged in direct discussions with the Trump administration. You never take a decision before you need to take a decision. And so nothing is pre-wired. Let's see what the situation is in the middle of March and do what is best for Canadians. And the government will do what's best for Canadians. If Parliament needs to be recalled for certain reasons, it will be. If it makes sense to get a strong mandate at that point, that is what will follow. But make no mistake, and I think this is a message for the United States, is that Canadians, and I'm not speaking about leadership contenders, I'm not speaking about current governments, federal or provincial. Canadians are united on this issue. Canadians have a strong sense of resolve. We're going to stand up collectively for Canada, and we're going to build our economy here in Canada first and foremost. And we'll see what arrangements we come with the Americans when we get to the table.
And just to follow up, previously all leadership candidates put out a joint statement on Donald Trump's threats. But in the past few days, Christian Freeland is back making aggressive proposals about better ways to deal with Trump. Is it constructive to have leadership candidates armchair quarterbacking the government right now?
I'll speak for myself. I'm careful in what I say about the current status of negotiations. You may have seen, I should say, that my focus has majored on what we should do here in Canada to strengthen our economy, irrespective of what the Americans take. And I've a lot of experience in negotiations. One of the most important things in negotiations is that you have options. And of course, a strong Canadian economy is in our interest, is all Canadians' interest. We have many ways to do that. I've said from the start that it's time to build. Il faut bâtir l'avenir, and we should do that now to strengthen our negotiating position as well. In terms of the real-time negotiations, leave that to the current Prime Minister and the ministers of the Crown. Thank you.
Benoît de Radio-Canada.
Ouais.
Le NPD a laissé entendre hier que si vous êtes élu à la tête du Parti libéral, vous pourriez déclencher des élections aussitôt que le 10 mars. Est-ce que c'est vrai? Quelles sont vos intentions?
Ça c'est une liste de presse du NPD. Je n'ai jamais Je n'ai jamais parlé au NPD en ce qui concerne n'importe quel enjeu. Alors, ça c'est la réponse.
Deuxième question.
Ouais, vas-y.
Vous souhaitez augmenter l'efficacité du gouvernement fédéral grâce à l'intelligence artificielle.
Ouais.
Comment est-ce possible de faire ça sans causer de perte d'emploi?
Alors, c'est très, très possible de faire ça parce que c'est une question de productivité des individus. Alors, avec l'intelligence artificielle, on augmente la productivité des individus, des fonctionnaires du gouvernement du Canada. Cet bâtiment, c'est un exemple de l'impact de l'intelligence artificielle. Et ça, c'est le point pour moi d'aujourd'hui. Je respecte votre question, mais ça, c'est le point pour moi aujourd'hui. On utilise l'intelligence artificielle afin de bâtir les logements à une rapidité, à un montant que nous n'avons jamais vu ici au Canada.
What would your approach be towards the Ukraine situation, and do you have a message to either Zelensky or Trump now that the Trump administration is signaling Ukraine will lose its chance at NATO membership and its borders?
Well, I'm very proud of the position that the Canadian government has taken to standing firm with Ukraine and absolutely reinforce that, continue to that. The pathway for Ukrainian membership of the European Union and ultimately of NATO is something I support.
And your plan to reach the NATO 2% target is less aggressive and detailed than some of your rivals and won't reach the target until Donald Trump leaves office. So I'm hoping you could explain how you plan to reach that target, how you'll spend the money to get there, and how you would deal with Trump's aggressive posture on Canada's failure to meet the target.
So, thank you for raising it. So, a couple of things. One, the way I've framed it is by 2030, which of course means as that would be the latest, 2030. If we can accelerate that, we will. But two things are crucial. The first is these are taxpayers' dollars. These are precious taxpayers' dollars. We need to spend them wisely and effectively. And secondly, in the following respect, currently 80% of our capital spending, or spend in the military on equipment, machinery, other aspects, not non-personnel expenditures, goes to the United States. Okay, goes to the United States. Contracts to the United States, the existing relations with the United States. We need to spend more of that money here in Canada. We need to be ready to spend that money here in Canada. If we can accelerate that spend, more of it in Canada, securing Canada, building Canadian jobs, we absolutely will do that. I'm not going to make a promise in advance without going into detail, and I don't see a great deal of detail in those other accelerated timelines. I'm not going to make a promise in advance that either runs the risk of wasting Canadian taxpayers' dollars or sending those taxpayer dollars to the country that is currently threatening us.
Next question, Monica, Google City Use. Can you talk a little bit more about what you're announcing here? If you're wanting to see
Yeah.
modular homes, what exactly will you be
So,
and I will just also note this was opposed by people in the area when it was being proposed.
yeah, well, there's a series of issues there, Monica. One is in terms of how we build in our communities and issues around densification and social acceptance of that, and of course those issues are first and foremost responsibilities of local governments and representatives, stakeholder groups, community groups, and coming together. I think there's a broader recognition within the country of the value of densification appropriately done, and the various federal programs that is supporting that. So I'll address that aspect of it. But of course, the decisions in the end are taken by the communities, as they should be. In terms of what we're highlighting here, but then what does it mean? We're highlighting the value of this type of construction innovation, more modular housing, as I said at the outset, but I really want to reinforce. We're talking about 25 to 50% acceleration in the speed with which the homes can be built. We're talking about reducing waste by up to 50%. There's a huge amount of waste in construction. And that's not unique to Canada, but it's an issue in Canada. It's one we should address. We're talking about reducing costs by 25%. We have a huge problem with affordability. If we can strip out 25% of the cost of homes, it's going to make it easier for young Canadian families to get those homes, more people into proper housing, decent housing. So all of those benefits are there. Now, what is the role of the federal government in that? It's a role partly as a partner, and it can do several things. Some of these are in train, some of them my government would reinforce. One is around building codes. So when you come up with new innovations, you have to make sure that that they meet certain code standards, that, for example, federal financing through something called CMHC, which you would know, that financing is available. And so accelerating the speed with which we set, as the federal government, the range of codes, the range of structures that we will finance and support through various federal programs, that's a huge role for the federal government. Another point I'd make, and I just came from the Faculty of Applied Engineering at UBC in their Smart Structures Lab, the volumetric structures. Some of that is supported through federal research funding. So providing that federal research funding and then taking the next stage in terms of commercialization and tax credits and others that promote that commercialization, that provide the incentives, and also provide support for those who are building. And if I just wrap all of this together, I've said from the outset, for the country, this is a time to build. It's directly relevant to the tariff response to the United States. We don't need the United States' permission to build more housing. We need support from the federal government, both in terms of the tax incentives, support for building codes, support for financing of individuals, and to drive this. This can be one of the big motors of our economy, and my government will absolutely stand foursquare behind it.
Last question.
And also wondering, you said you plan to run in the next election regardless of how this leadership
Yes.
goes. Wondering, do you know which riding you would be running in, and if you don't get no, would you commit to not parachute into what's deemed a safe riding that you might have little to no
I'm
connection?
not parachuting too. Okay, so I will run in the next election, irrespective, just to be absolutely clear, irrespective of the outcome of the leadership election. I would hope to win that seat, so irrespective of what happens in the general election, I will serve my entire term as an MP. If I am elected, if I'm given the confidence of the voters wherever I run, I am a politician. I'm running for the leadership. I will run to be selected as a candidate, and I would just make the following observation, which is that what is happening is Canadians are listening to the message that we're sending out, a positive message about building the economy, moving forward, message standing up to the Americans, getting the best deal for Canada, but also changing our trading partners, building one Canadian economy, is that more and more seats are becoming attractive. In other words, Canadians are rallying behind the Liberal Party. That gives us a tremendous responsibility in order to deliver to them, and I look forward to standing in the location that's appropriate, where appropriate. I have ties. Maybe I'll just say one more thing, which is I have many ties in this country. I grew up in Alberta. I was born in the north. My parents are from British Columbia. My family, a good part of my family lives there. I lived in Toronto. I live in Ottawa. I have many ties, and obviously I would be a local MP, but also my intention is to win this leadership, to become Prime Minister, and to represent all Canadians. Thank you very much. Okay, come that way.